This is the third part of our lesson on sine law and cosine law practice. So our next question here, we have a triangle that has three given sides. So we have 425 meters, 325 meters, and 375 meters. And we're trying to find angle x. So the first thing I do is try to choose a method. So sine law or cosine law. This is not a right angle triangle, which is why I cannot use Pythagorean theorem or SOHCAHTOA. So if I'm trying to decide between sine law and cosine law, sine law, you need an angle and an opposite side. And right now, I don't know any of the angles at all in this triangle, which means I cannot use sine law. So we are going to use cosine law. Now, there are two different formula options up here for cosine law. So how do I know which one to pick? Well, it depends. I would use this formula if I'm trying to solve for a side, and this formula if we're trying to solve for an angle. And in this question, we are trying to solve for an angle. So I'm going to use that second formula. So the next thing we're going to do is label. So in my triangle, it's easiest if I label the angle as A, and then other two, B and C, it doesn't matter which one is which. So across from angle A is where you would find side A, across from angle B is where we would find side B, and across from angle C is where you would find side C. So another way you could tell that it's that second formula and not the first one is that we are trying to solve for big A, the large angle A. And so if I look at these two formulas, this one is what I would use if I was solving for the lowercase a. This is the one I would use when I'm solving for uppercase a, because those are the things that are on the left-hand side of the formula. So I'm going to write down my formula. So I have cosine of A equals B squared plus C squared minus A squared over 2 times B times C. So cosine of my angle A is x. B is 425, so it's 425 squared, plus C is 375 squared. Take away A, which is 325 squared. And then that is all divided by 2 times B, so 425, times C, which is 375. Okay, my next step is to calculate the numerator and calculate the denominator separately on my calculator. So 425 squared plus 375 squared, take away 325 squared, gives me 215,625. In the denominator, 2 times 425 times 375 gives me 318,750. Okay, my next step, I'm going to calculate what that is on my calculator. So I'm going to take 215,625 and divide that by 318,750, and I get 0.676470588. And then my last step is to try to get rid of the cosine. So anytime you're solving for an angle, you should be using an inverse cosine or an inverse sine, depending on which formula you're using. Anytime you're trying to get rid of just a cosine or a sine that doesn't have a number with it, that's when we know we're using the inverse. So I'm going to do the inverse cosine of both sides. So on my calculator, I'm just going to do second and then cos. If you see what you type in on your screen, you need to hit equals and it should give you your answer. And I have 47.43. I'm going to take a peek at the next number, which is a 1, so that's going to stay 47.43. So x is approximately 47.43 3, and this is an angle, so degrees. Okay, and that's question number 3. We're going to join me in the next video if you want to see how to do our last question.